Hi and welcome. I'm trying to learn history. Today the Treaty of Amiens, and after we're done with it, we're gonna do standing leg stretching. And if you participate in the standing leg stretching, then it's valid your armrest. And this is about war. The French First Council, this is part 7-8 or whatever. The French First Council, Napoleon Bonaparte, first made truce proposals to British Foreign Secretary Lord Grenville as early as 1799. Because of the hardline stance of Grenville and the Prime Minister William Pitt the Younger, their distrust of Bonaparte and obvious defects in the proposals, they were rejected out of hand. However, Pitt, the British Prime Minister, resigned in February 1801 over domestic issues and was replaced by the more accommodating Henry Ellington. At that point, Britain was motivated by the danger of a war with Russia. The new British Prime Minister, Ellington's Foreign Secretary, Robert Jenkins, Lord Hawkesbury, immediately opened communications with Lord Guillemot-Otto, the French commissionary for prisoners of war in London, through whom Bonaparte had made his earlier proposals. Hawkesbury, so the British one, stated that he wanted to open discussions on terms for a peace agreement. Otto, the French one, generally under detailed instructions from Bonaparte, engaged in negotiations with Hawkesbury in the mid-1801. Unhappy with the dialogue with Otto, Hawkesbury sent diplomat Anthony Merry to Paris, who opened a second line of communication with the French Foreign Minister, Charles Maurice de Talleyrand-Perregaux. By mid-September, written negotiations had progressed to the point that Hawkesbury and Otto, so Hawkesbury the British and Otto the French, met to draft a preliminary agreement. On the 30th of September, they signed the preliminary agreement in London, which was published the next day. And now the new things. The terms of a preliminary agreement, so signed by the British, Hawkesbury, and the Otto, the French one. Agreement required Britain to restore most of the French colonial possessions that it had captured since 1794. Okay, the things which Britain had conquered, or what is the term? Possessed by the French colonies, which Britain has taken over the previous decade, had to give back. They had to evacuate Malta and to withdraw from other occupied Mediterranean ports. Malta was to be restored to the Order of St. John, whose sovereignty was to be guaranteed by one or more powers, to be determined at the final peace. I don't know how the Order of St. John is. Maybe that is, I don't know what it is. Okay, whatever. Malta had to be given back by Britain to France. France was to restore Egypt to Ottoman control. The Ottoman Empire is not part of the agreement here. Just France, Spain, Netherlands, and Britain. Okay, France had to give Egypt to the Ottoman Empire. France had also to withdraw from most of the Italian peninsula and to agree to preserve Portuguese sovereignty. Okay, the British people had to give, or the British country had to give up Malta and the other French colonies which Britain had got possession of in the last decade. France had to restore Egypt to the Ottoman Empire and also to withdraw from Italy and to agree to the sovereignty of Portugal. Ceylon, today's Sri Lanka, south of India, Ceylon, previously a Dutch territory, was to remain with the British. Okay, Ceylon was Dutch, but then the British had conquered it and the British people could keep it. And Newfoundland fishery rights were to be restored to their pre-war status. I don't know where Newfoundland is. Okay, Newfoundland fishery rights were to be restored to their pre-war status. Britain was also to recognize the Seven Islands Republic, wherever they are, established by France on the Ionian Islands. Okay, so they are in Greek, but are now part of Greek. Britain was to recognize the Seven Island Republic. Okay, in Greek there was a region called the Seven Islands Republic, a country with the name Seven Islands Republic, and they were part of these Ionian Islands in the Mediterranean Sea, which are today Greek, and Britain had to give them to themselves back, maybe under control of France, but they're today Greek. Both sides were to be allowed access to the outposts of the Cape of Good Hope. Okay, France and British ships could drive to South Africa, to the Cape of Good Hope. And in a blow to Spain, the preliminary agreement included a secret clause. Oh yes, it was just between the British and the French, between Hawkesbury and Otto. So this is not the final Treaty of Amiens in which the Netherlands had signed. The Spanish people had signed. And in a blow to Spain, the preliminary agreement included a secret clause in which Trinidad was to remain with Britain. Trinidad is in the Caribbean. This is here also written. Britain retained Ceylon and Trinidad. Okay. Spain would finally recover the island of Menorca. What does recover mean? They get it back. Was finally recover the island of Menorca. Okay, that's an island in the Mediterranean Sea also. News of the signing was greeted across Europe with joy. The celebration of peace, the pamphlets, poems, and odes proliferated in French, English, German, and other languages. Actors happily depicted the treaty at dinner theatres, vaudeville, and the legitimate state. In Britain were the illuminations and fireworks. Peace, it was thought in Britain, would lead to the withdrawal of the income tax imposed by Pitt, a reduction of grain prices, and a revival of markets. Now we're starting with the first acts. Now the signing of this preliminary deal was greeted with great joy in all Europe. And it was a celebration of peace, and which was done in pamphlets. I don't know really what it are, but it must be something written down. But in poems and in odes. And that was done in many different languages, French, English, and German. And also other ones. Okay, and the whole culture was then a celebration scene of this preliminary agreement of the Treaty of Amiens. Actors happily depicted the treaty at dinner theatres, vaudeville, and the legitimate state, so people were doing theatre work about it. In Britain were the illuminations and fireworks. There was actually partying in Britain about it. Peace, it was thought in Britain, would lead to the withdrawal of the income tax imposed by Pitt. That means there was an income tax imposed in Britain in the time 1801. Maybe it was previously also there, and it was imposed, but it was not reinstated. But it's interesting. A reduction of grain prices was thought about and a revival of markets. But maybe that didn't even happen. Peace, it was fought in Britain, would lead to a withdrawal of the income tax, reduction of grain prices, and a revival of markets. But as we have read here previously, the British Prime Minister Henry used the interlude of the Treaty of Amiens because this whole peace lasted only for 1 year, and then became a decade of very brutal war. Now, the British Prime Minister Henry Eddington used the interlude to rebuild British strength, so that when fighting renewed in spring 1803, the Royal Navy quickly gained control of the seas. So I guess now, I don't know, but the income tax was introduced under Eddington first. Now, who was it now? Under Pitt, the previous Prime Minister, because of the war costs. The people now thought with the Treaty of Amiens, the cost would come down. The income tax was taken back because the war wasn't happening anymore. But the income tax stayed, and the time was then used of this 1 year to build up the military strength to be ready for the next decade of war, as it then actually happened. And the people thought also it would lead to a reduction of grain prices. I could think that actually happened. And a revival of markets that will be independent of everything. Okay, that was now the early diplomacy part. In the next part, we're having final negotiations. Now we're going to do, what are we doing? Standing leg stretching. Now, if you're here for history, you can go directly to the next part. We will do no standing leg stretching. If you participate in the standing leg stretching, then sit in your home. We're bringing one leg up and we're putting the foot down, the mushroom. Now take the other leg and point the foot down. Take again one leg as the ankle, point the foot down, make a straight leg, and point the foot down. The crane. And take the other ankle, make a straight back, point the knee down to the floor. Now the garden gnome. One heel onto the ground and pull the toes in and move the leg from left to right. Then back and forth. The other heel into the ground, pull the toes in and move the leg from left to right. And now we're doing the chain stop. Going over to one side and we're pointing the toes forward and stretching the other side of the leg. And again over to the other side. Toes pointing forward. And now we're doing Niagara Falls. Legs wide apart, we're breathing in. And breathe out and we're hanging down. This is a leg stretch. So we're just breathing in from the nose to the chest. And out from the mouth. And breathe it in. And out. And in. And out we go over to one leg. Breathe again in. And breathe out over to the other leg. Breathe again in. And out we go into the middle. And now we're trying as a little interlude. The one who tried not to look too obvious. So make the legs shoulder wide apart and pull a bit down. But again, this is a leg stretch, not a back stretch. So carefully. And we're going over to the side to Angelo. Close the feet together and just hang down. And breathe in. And out. And in. And out and coming slowly up with a shoulder back. Waking at the top and back with shoulder around. And now we're ending, almost, with a hiker's hilltop stretch. We heel onto the ground and pull the toes in. Bring the foot to the left and pull the toes in. The foot to the right and pull the toes in. Foot into the middle, pull the toes in, move the leg from left to right. Now the other heel onto the ground, pull the toes in. Bring the foot to the right and pull the toes in. Bring the foot to the left and pull the toes in. Foot in the middle and move the leg from left to right. And now we're ending with a trunk ignite. Breathe in, legs wide apart. And breathe out. Out. And the last strong breathe in. Out. And close the legs. And out. That was the standing and leg stretching. I think I will much in the next time.